All righty. Well, welcome to the auto email class. This is a class I've taught a lot of times here at Hometown and many other offices throughout the area. And it's a very important class because except for actually searching for homes to go show houses or to help price properties, probably learning how to do auto email is the second most important thing in the entire MLS system for you to be comfortable with. It's one of the most powerful tools that MLS offers, and most agents take it completely for granted. And what I mean by that is it's not hard to set up an auto email, and we're going to walk through that to make sure that you know all the steps and what they do. That's the easy part. Everybody can do that. But there are many things that you can do with your auto emails to make them actually work for you. Like most things in real estate, nothing in real estate is ever automatic. You don't just do it and it just sits out there on the internet and produces stuff. You have to work it. You have to have a plan. You have to have follow-up. And you have to have ideas that help you connect with the people you're connecting to. And so as we go through the process of setting up an auto email today, those are some of the things that I'm going to try to focus on. Feel free to ask questions. And even though this is scheduled to go an hour, I will stay on as long as necessary to answer any of those questions. So does that sound like a plan and a fair deal?
Sounds good.
All right, well then what I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen. And that should be this one right here. And can you now all see my MLS screen?
Yeah.
Got my mouse floating around on it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Oh, good, okay. And we will go ahead and go into the MLS itself. And I'm just making my other screen better so I can see all of you in case you have a question. And is this large enough for everybody to see comfortable, or should I enlarge it a little bit for you?
Enlarge it a little bit.
All right, that's a good idea. So let's see here. How's that? Does that look good to everybody now?
Good. Yeah.
All righty. So how many of you, and just tell me by waving your hand at me, nobody will see you, I don't think, have used auto email already before with actual people in your business? Wave your hand at the screen, okay? So a few of you are just getting started, most of you have done it before. So if you have something to write on and you were going to take notes, the first thing I want you to remember is that the way you create an auto email is you create the search first, and all the important stuff is under results. You always start with the search. And really, the first and most important part of doing a good auto email is creating the search. Your customers can create searches for themselves now on dozens and dozens of places across the internet, including in our MLS itself. One of the things that I'm going to hopefully have time to show you is that once you create an auto email, you've actually given them a place to create their own searches in here. So what that means is you want to not only create searches based on what you think they might or might not want, you want to make sure that you are creating better searches than they create based on things that they don't have access to, knowing that you have more information than they do. So we're going to go up here to search. And for today, we're going to go to single family condo full search. And for those of you who might not have done a lot of searching, remember, always use full search. Quick search doesn't do very much that is worth the effort. And we're going to be working with a buyer because most times when you're doing an auto email, you are working with buyers. Although There are some uses for auto emails in other circumstances as well. So we'll leave this on active, maybe add coming soon to it if you want to. But I'm going to uncheck that and leave it on active. We'll do single family, and I'm going to go ahead and create a typical search. Now, right now, we still have too few listings in the MLS. So I'm going to create a search that gives us more properties than we normally would if we were creating a tight search for a customer, just so that I have enough numbers to work with. But that's ultimately your goal, is to create good quality, tight searches that actually show your customers properties that meet what they're looking for and that they might be interested in. The more properties you send to somebody, the longer it takes for them to do what? Pick one, yeah. And remember, your goal is always to help them to do the one thing they don't want to do. They don't want to pick one. Yeah, they might want to find a house, but why don't they want to pick one? Why are they afraid to pick one? What might happen if they do that?
The perfect one may come along.
Yeah. And so what you're looking to do is send them good quality, tight searches. Zig Ziglar's famous saying is always closing. Everything you do is designed not to simply give them information. They can do that themselves nowadays. Your goal is to help them narrow the list and pick one. What is the perfect number of houses to send somebody? And it is a trick question, so.
There is no perfect number.
Well, the most perfect number would be one. Doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, okay.
But that's your ultimate goal, because your job is not to find information for them anymore. Your job is to help them make a good decision based on why they are working with you, and help them make the decision that they are reluctant to make. It's not about getting them to buy a house. It's getting them to do the very thing that they connected with you for to begin with. So you want to create tight searches. I'm going to put in Hanover County here, just so that I don't have too few matches. And now you can see I'm down to 321 matches already. I'll put in a price range. I'm going to make one up here. We'll go, how about 200 to 300? You would use a narrower price range than that in the real world. If you know what they're qualified for, you would probably go a few $1,000s under and a few $1,000s over whatever price range and price point that represents. And we're down to 40 matches. I'll do 3 or more bedrooms. That would be 3+. And they want at least 2.5 baths. And y'all remember how to do that, right? Because it's a big secret in Matrix how you do this until somebody shows you. And so we're going to type 2.1 plus. And so now we're down to 20 matches. And for the most part, if you're just getting started in the MLS, this is pretty much how all searches work for the most part. Beyond this, it's just a matter of knowing what information is in all the fields. So for example, this is a numeric field. This is a numeric field. The dash works for a range. The plus or the minus works for greater than or less than. So square footage works the same way. Acres works the same way. You can pick things off of lists. So if I wanted to do style over here, I can select colonial. If I want to do contemporary and colonial, I hold down my control key, and control allows you to select more than one thing off of any list in any Windows product. It also allows you to unselect. But here's where you want to get a little bit more creative, because our MLS has the same problem all MLSs do, which is we let real estate agents put their listings into the MLS all by themselves. And real estate agents don't always do everything the same way, and they don't necessarily call everything the same thing. So while I tend to think, for example, most colonials are two-story, and a lot of two-story buildings are probably colonials, if I go here and scroll up to the top and hold down my control key and click on two-story, it changes my number down there at the bottom, because there are agents who probably put in two-story and never thought to also put in colonial. So for some of these lists, you want to be a little bit creative based on how the agents in your market area tend to put things in the MLS and what they tend to call them. And that will come over time with more and more experience as you do more and more of that sort of thing. And the last thing I'm going to remind you about searches is this bottom section, additional fields. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail today because we don't have the time to go into search details, but there are approximately 300 fields in a typical listing in the MLS. And almost all of those fields can be used to create more precise searches. And you can add those fields down here at the bottom of any search. And the cool thing about that is once you add them, they stay down there. So if they're fields that you use regularly, you can add them and leave them here, and they'll always be available for you for when you do your searches. And again, that's something that might differ from place to place. Odds are in the city of Richmond, you may choose extra fields, additional fields that are different than the ones that you might choose in, say, Hanover or Dinwiddie or some places where things are a little more rural. And the best way to get familiar with those other fields is to do two things. Either print out a copy of that 11-page listing input form that you always use whenever you put a listing in the MLS, right? I'm sure you do. Everyone does. No, but they should. And keep it handy so that when somebody asks you for a property with, say, purple widgets in it or something, which is not in the MLS, by the way, I made that up. You can go over that form and find out which field, which list that is on, and that's the field that you would use down here at the bottom. The second thing that you can do, especially if you haven't done it, is find someone in your office who has a listing to put in the MLS and sit with them and go through the process of putting the listing in. It will make your searches 10 times better than they were before without you having to do any studying, because you'll start to get familiar with what all the fields are and what kind of information is in or goes in all of those fields. And suddenly you will be able to do better searches than you were able to do before. I'll point out a couple of things here, and then we'll move on and turn this into an auto email. So down here at the bottom, I have a field called restrictions, and you have age qualified and age restricted. That's one of the ones I get asked about a lot. How do I search for properties for people who are 55 and older? I don't have that problem because most of my friends are 55 and older. I just ask them, but that's a different story. But that's the field that you add, and you can use age qualified and age restricted, and that will take you to properties for people 55 and older. And I don't remember which one of those is which, so always use both of them. You can search owned by for REO properties. Everybody know what REO properties are? Those are properties that are bank owned, generally in foreclosure. So somebody says they would like to look for foreclosures, you include the owned by field and you select REO. Somebody says they want no foreclosures, they don't want to look at them, you select REO and you select not, and that will eliminate REOs. One of the more popular ones is waterfront properties, at least in some areas. Now you have a waterfront yes or no field, and that's probably the best field to use, assuming they remember to click it. But under the water type field, you can select the type of waterfront, creek front, lakefront, riverfront, and my favorite for around here, bayfront, because if we ever get bay or ocean front in this area, we'll have other issues to deal with, but they are on the list. And so knowing these fields exist, knowing the kinds of information that goes into them, and getting more and more familiar with them will automatically help you create better searches. I do want to mention one more field, and that is the remarks field. The purpose of the remarks field in the MLS is not to write an ad, even though it does go out on the MLS. The purpose of the remarks field in the MLS is for things to go there that you don't ordinarily find in other places in the MLS, because there aren't places for it. Things like in-law suite or short sale. There are no fields for those. And the way you would search for them is to put the words in the remarks field that you want. You can put as many as you want, separated by commas, but each one of the words has to have one additional thing. You have to put an asterisk before and after it. So if I wanted in-law suite, I could type in-law, all one word, put an asterisk before and after it. Now, the problem is it can be more than one way. And so this is going to sound complicated, but pay attention and you'll understand it. I can think of 3 ways people might put that in the remarks part of the MLS. So I would type asterisk, in-law, all one word, asterisk, comma, asterisk, in dash law, asterisk, comma, asterisk, in space law, asterisk, comma. And if you were able to write that down, you'd see I did 3 different ways of spelling it with an asterisk before and after each one, and each one separated by a comma. Not as complicated as it sounds when you describe it. And now it'll find all 3 of those spellings wherever it appears in the remarks section. So that's some general information on how to create better and better searches. The only way to learn how to do this, though, is not to wait until you are working with a real customer. So your first homework assignment for today, if you haven't done it, is when we're done, go get a fresh cup of coffee, a whole box of Krispy Kreme donuts, and make up some fake searches. Think of things that people might ask you to find in a house, especially things that they can't find for themselves on Realtor.com and Zillow, and see if you can create searches to find houses with those things in it. And if you get stuck, pop me an email, because this stuff is fun for me, and I'll be more than happy to help you figure out how to do that. Any questions about creating good, tight searches that are a better quality than the ones that your agents can find for themselves? Any searches that you've had trouble figuring out real quick before we move on?
John Norman here. The only issue I've run into is that if the listing agent does not fill in whether they leave it blank or whatnot, if I'm looking for a particular property, like new or resale, but if somebody doesn't put either one, that will not pop up in a search. And that's frustrating.
Your bill.
I'm not sure. I thought new or resale was a required field. I thought they were required to put it in. I'll have to double check that. In fact, I'll double check that and get back to you. Yeah. One of the problems with the system is what I mentioned.
No.
The information is only as good as what the agents put into their listings. But this is where familiarity can come along, because there is another field connected to that. And that is the and I forget what it's called. Is it year built?
Yes, sir.
It's the one where you can say to be built or things like that. So if you were to use some of the fields in that field as an alternative, you might find some of the properties that you weren't able to find if they didn't put that information in. And thanks for the question. I'm going to double check to see if that's a required field or not. Any other questions? That was a good question. All right, then. Well, let's then go ahead and turn this into an auto email. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top, and you can see we have 15 matches, which is a pretty good number. You always want to learn to use that down in that corner. You will always have your own magic number. Maybe you're going to go show somebody 4 or 5 houses, and so you want to have about 12 to pick the best 5 from. And so as you approach your number, you stop putting in criteria, because the more criteria you put in, which way do your numbers always go? They always go down. Same with looking for comps for pricing a house. You need at least 3 actives and 3 solds. So maybe you want about 25 properties to pick the best 6 or 7 or 8 to use for your pricing purposes. So as you approach your number, you start looking at the properties themselves instead of adding more criteria. 15 is a good number for me. And so remember what I said, once you create your search, all the good stuff is under results. So we'll click on results. And these are the properties that we are going to be working with. Now, I want to point something out to you, because it's the difference between running a search and creating an auto email. Down at the bottom here, these are the big blue bottom buttons, which is hard to say this time of the morning. And not all of them are lit up. And y'all know the reason for that. It's because I haven't selected any properties. So if I select a couple properties, I can now email them, print them, pull them into a CMA, do all sorts of things with these bottom buttons down here. And if I want to select all of them, I click the little one at the top. If I want to unselect all of them, now none of them are selected. But what I want you to realize is, to create an auto email, you don't have to select any properties, because we're not saving the properties. We're saving the search that we created, and we're automating it so that it will automatically send the properties to our customers and clients. And so that as new properties come in and match the search, those properties, notifications for those will also go to the customer and client. So we have 15 properties. If I go here to click on save, I have 3 different ways of saving a property. No one ever uses this last one. Everybody was excited about it for 2 weeks when we first went to Matrix, and then nobody paid any attention to it anymore. The 2 you will use are these 2. New saved search allows you to save this search so that you can run it yourself and look at it yourself manually from time to time. Auto email is where we're going today. And so let me give you your next homework assignment. And that is, you need to know what is going to your customers. You should never send anything to your customers that you haven't already seen yourself, because if they've never done this before, they're going to call you and ask you questions. And the worst answer of all is to say, "No, I don't know the answer to your question. I haven't seen one of those myself before." So if you haven't done it, even if you've been doing this for a while, if you haven't done it, I want you to go in here and create 3 fake auto emails with yourself as the agent and yourself as the customer. Make up some fake searches. How many of you would like to go out later this week and buy a $2 million house for all cash? Wouldn't that be great? Yeah. Well, you can't, I know, unless you can, and I don't know you well enough to know that. We'll have lunch later if you can, by the way. But they are fun to look at. So go in here and create a search for all the $2 million or more properties and turn it into an auto email and enjoy the view. They are fun to look at. There's a house out in Goochland that comes on the market every couple years that looks like a castle, and I always watch for it because I like to take my time walking through the pictures. It'd be like living in Lord of the Rings or something. It's very cool. So take a look at what your customer gets. Understand how they interact with it so that you can tell your customer how you and they are going to use this information. That's one of the things a lot of agents never do. But remember, the whole purpose of this is not to send them information, it's to interact with them at every opportunity. So you have to know what they got, and you have to know how to use it as well as they do so that you can work together and lock yourself in with them. So I'm going to click on new auto email. And by the way, on your fake ones, there is something in here that you need to always do. And I will show you where that is in just a minute. So here we are in the wizard. This part is very easy to do. Who can tell me, and I hope it's yellow on your screen, there are two fields here that are yellow. What does yellow mean in Matrix?
You put something in it.
It's required. You have to put stuff into those fields. Now, for contact, if I drop this down, anybody I've worked with in the MLS before, either for an auto email or for a CMA, will be on my list. And if I click on more, I can see all of them. And there you can see I only work with people who are fictional, famous, or dead. I don't actually work with any real people because I don't list or sell properties at present. But I have done it many times for many years. And so I can pick somebody who's already in my contact list. And by the way, the place you can see your contact list and manage it is up here under My Matrix, Contacts. And you can go in there. Every time you create an auto email or a CMA in the CMA wizard, it automatically saves your client's information for you. And you can access that up here under My Matrix. If they're not on your list, then you have to create a new contact. So we'll click here. And I'm going to be working with Terry Bradshaw because he was on the news yesterday. He came out with a new dumb song. So we'll work with Terry. And I have to put in their email address because that's the whole point of auto email. It can't work without an email address. So I'm going to put in, whoops. Oh, gosh. All right, just to let you know, I have a kind of email that lets me make up email addresses on the fly and they still come to me. I want to make sure you don't do that. I had a student once who typed the exact same email address and I wound up getting all her stuff. If you make up a fake email address, it might be somebody's email address and they won't have any idea why you're sending this stuff. You all probably have 2 email addresses or more in your life. We all do now. So use the one you use as a real estate agent as the agent side of this, and use your other email address as if you were your own customer, and send stuff back and forth to yourself until you've got the process down to the point where it's familiar. And you need to do that before you start doing it with real people. If I click on show all fields, there's tons of places to put additional information in here about my customer, but the ones I need are these 3. And if I was sending this to more than one person, like Mrs. Terry Bradshaw, whoever she might be, I can add them in this box separated by commas. So I'll click on save, and then the subject line. This is one of the opportunities you have to do what a lot of other agents don't do necessarily, and that is use the subject line. It's required. Most people will just put in something simple here. You want to put in something that tells your customer what and why you are doing this. And the same with the emails that are below, which we're going to come to next. Of all the things we're going to talk about that you can do to make this actually work for yourself instead of just sit there and hope somebody responds to something, it's probably the subject and the emails. If you are writing something down, I want you to write this sentence down or as close to it as you can. Because your goal in doing this is to make sure that they know that you know who they are. Think about that sentence for a minute. That they know that you know who they are. How many of you have ever had somebody ask you about houses, and so you started sending them information? Maybe you got a call, maybe you got an email, maybe you even set up an auto email, and you had that happen. Anybody? Wave at the screen if you've had that happen. Yeah, you have. Now, how many of you think you're the only real estate agent they talk to? Because if you do, there's a bridge over the James River over here that I have listed at a good price, and I'll be happy to sell it to you for cash. No, they probably talked to 5 agents or 3 agents, and they told all 3 agents the exact same thing. And so all 3 agents went in here and set up the almost identical search and auto email. They are getting the same information from 3 different agents. The emails look pretty much the same. Why should they pick yours over the others? And the thing that's going to make that work, the thing that goes along with all of your Buffini stuff and all the contacting you make, is to make sure that they know that you know who they are, that it's not just an automatic thing you're sending them that the system is pumping out, and you'll talk to them somewhere down the road if they respond. So you put something in the subject line that tells them what we're doing and why we're doing this, and what's going to be involved in it. And you can edit some of the emails. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. So I'm going to put in a subject here. We'll say, Terry, pick one now. I mean, sometimes you just have to tell them what to do. And no, I'm not suggesting using that one. I'm just saying that sometimes you have to tell them exactly what they're supposed to do. But that's way better than saying a search for you or here's some houses. One of the things I also recommend, we talked about creating searches. Instead of creating one big search, if they ask for multiple kinds of properties or multiple kinds of locations, try creating different searches and give each one a different subject line. First of all, not only does that distinguish things for them, but it also gives you searches to turn off. You know, down the road you say, well, most of the properties you've liked are coming from this search. Let's turn off those other searches. I can always turn them back on if you want me to. And what you're doing is you're helping them to narrow their list. You're always looking for ways to make the list get smaller and smaller and smaller until they finally pick one. Same thing with the emails. There are 2 emails here, and they are very important. One is the welcoming email. Never completely change the welcoming email. If you read this, you'll see that it gives them a good explanation of how this works. And the reason that's important is because you're never actually sending them listings. In our old system, if you sent them a listing, they got an email with an attachment, and they could open the attachment and print it out. This doesn't do that. This sends all the information to something called the portal. What the portal is, it's an online in MLS 2-way website that you and they can access. And it dumps all the information onto that portal. And they can do some amazing things there. they can mark some as favorites, and they can mark some as having possibilities, and they can reject some. And you can go on and find out what they've been doing with this wonderful information that you've been providing to them. And they can go on there and create some of their own searches. And you can look at the properties that they've been finding themselves and talk to them about those, or find out why they did that when it didn't match what you sent, and all sorts of stuff. You can even exchange notes on individual properties, an ongoing online conversation, kind of like texting, or like you can do with comments on Facebook. And so it allows you to interact. So do you see why you need to play with the portal yourself, so you can understand how that works, so you can tell your customer how it works, so that you can use it as a place to interact with your customer. And what this first message does is it tells them a little bit about the portal. So leave this information here. In fact, here's a remarkable idea. You can do something that 50% of the agents that you know haven't done. Read this message and find out what it says, because you should never send anything to your customer that you all didn't already know exactly what it says. I can click on this first line where there's a space, maybe hit enter and type in something like personal, like, how about 5 rooms is not bad. And if you know the Steelers' history, you'll understand that. They weren't all his, but they've been a pretty good team. And that lets him know, this is not an automated message, that I do know who he is. The other message is more important. This is the one that goes out every time something new matches this search to your customer. Now, if you don't change this, and the other agents that are also sending them information don't change this, can you all see what it says? 1 or more new updated listings match your search criteria. How exciting. This is where you personalize it. You put something in here that lets them know that you know who they are. Hi, it was so great talking to you the other day. I know you're busy. We talked about your struggles with your kids, having to homeschool them in the quarantine. And by the way, how did Fluffy do at the vet? And of course, you hope Fluffy survived the visit to the vet when you ask that question. But you see what I'm saying? And not only do you do that, but the second step is even more important. Once you have people set up in here for auto emails, you need to schedule at least once a month, maybe every 2 weeks, and go back in here and change this message. Right now, it could be a happy spring message, kind of. Next month, it could be, what are you doing for Memorial Day weekend? And the 4th of July, you could ask them if they saw any of the spaceships parked over all of our major cities, if you saw the movie, you know. But the point is, you want to change this message periodically so that it stops looking like an automated computer is talking to them, and it looks like a real person is talking to them. 80% of the other agents out there will never do that. And that will not only make your stuff look better, but it will make them know that you know that they know who you are, or however I said that before. And that will help lock them into you. That's the kind of thing that you do to make this work. Anybody can set up an automatic system. You need to do what the others are not doing as part of your follow-up, as part of your contact. You make this part of what you do with your calls, notes, and pop-bys. It's how you work your auto emails. And I'll show you one other really big thing you can do toward the end of the class. So how are we doing so far? Not too hard to do, right? Now here is your signature. Hopefully you filled in your signature by now with all 5 things that are required by law to be in all of your electronic signatures when working with customers. And just as a quick reminder, the 5 things are your name, your contact information, the firm that you work for, the city and state of the office your license is affiliated with. So in my case, it has to say Mechanicsville, Virginia. And if you work, Liz, you work in Ashland, so yours would have to say Ashland, Virginia. And then the 5th one is licensed jurisdiction, licensed in the state of or licensed in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Who said that? Somebody had a comment, I thought.
I think it's Vonda. Sometimes her light is lighting up.
That's all right. Okay, so you fill that out. If you haven't done it, you can click here to edit your signature. You can also add a picture of yourself. Oh gosh. And this will be available for everything that you send to everybody out of MLS, including your auto emails. Down here is where you can see your criteria. I never look at it because if I made a mistake in my search, I don't want to know. I'd have to go back and change it. And then you have some settings here. First of all, you see this one that says show this contact in reverse prospecting results. Every time you do a fake search, you need to uncheck that box. If you leave it checked, the agents whose listings match your search can find out that you have an auto email that matches it. They won't know who your customer is, but they will or can call you and say, I see you have a customer that matches my listing. Can I help you set up a showing? Can I find out what your customer is looking for and see what we can do about it? I will go with you. I'll bring the coffee and the contracts and all that kind of stuff. And so if it's a fake search and you tell them, no, it was a fake search, they'll be sadly disappointed. So especially those guys with the $2 million or more houses, because they're always looking for people. So uncheck that for fake ones, but always leave it checked when you are working with a real customer, because you really want to get those calls and emails from other agents where you can talk to them about the house and things that you and they might do to make it more interesting to your customer and maybe help put a deal together. So under those circumstances, it is in fact a very good thing. And I'm going to show you good ways to contact those people. The other one we're going to mention here is concierge mode. We don't have time to look at it today, but the difference in it is instead of sending these listings to your customer, it sends them to you first. And you get to look them over and pick the ones that you want to go on to your customer. For customers that are very, very picky or fussy, or you just need to preview. And so you'll get an email that says you have listings to review. You review the listings, you check off the ones you think are best, and those go forward to your customers. And you'll only use it occasionally, but it is a good tool. So I'm going to uncheck this because I'm not really working with any customers today. Down here, you get to control how often notices go out. If you put it on ASAP, they go out almost as soon as they hit the MLS, usually within 15 to 30 minutes, because it takes about 15 or 30 minutes for the MLS to completely process a new listing once you've put it in. And this is probably the choice most people make. Although if you are working with a search that has a lot of properties, you might not want to select it because your customer may just get too many notifications and you don't want to overwhelm them. Or you can select daily and even pick the time frame, morning or afternoon, or morning and afternoon on some days and not others. You can create a nice looking pretty pattern here. Select however you want, and that will control when the notices go out. The last one is interesting. I'm going to give you something you might use this for. It says monthly, and they go out the first of the month every month. Not usually something you might do with a buyer, unless it's just somebody that may sometime in the next 5 or 10 years become one. You know what I would use this for? Who here has ever sold a house? All right, I only saw a few hands there. So the rest of you write this down. You'll want to do this. And you have maybe your buyer. Who's sold a house and you had the buyer? All right, so you go here and create a search, maybe draw a circle around where the new house was, maybe a mile radius, and you save it and turn it into an auto email, and you include actives and solds and maybe pendings. And then when you get down here, you select monthly, and your subject line is, here is your monthly neighborhood market report. And every month, they automatically get a report on what's been going on in their neighborhood, like an automatic free drip email campaign. What's that? And that's another use for auto emails in addition to just sending listing information to buyers and hoping to interact with them. I'm just going to leave mine on ASAP for today. Any questions about any of the setups here? Pretty straightforward, but hopefully I gave you some thoughts about using it in ways you hadn't thought of before. So we're going to click on save. And now the email is gone. The first email is going out. Who had a question?
Hey, this is Neely. It was back on the previous screen.
Yep.
Something about enabling your favorite.
Yeah, that's not something that you would probably do with an auto email, but you would do more with a saved search. I'll show you that real quick. If I had created a search, and remember it said I could save it and rerun it myself whenever I wanted to, I check that box, and back here on the home screen, I have a widget that shows me my favorite searches.
Gotcha.
It'll hold up to 10 searches, and it puts it here so that if it's one you monitor frequently, you can just go here and click on it and see that search and run it manually. You probably won't do that with auto emails because you're already going to get notices for those, but you can create saved searches that do that. So let's go back to where I just was. We created the auto email. It's already started going out. Up here under My Matrix, here we have auto email. This is where all your auto emails live. This is where you manage your auto emails and do some of the things that I've been talking about to follow up on them and actually make them work. So if I click here, here's a list of all of my auto emails. And you can see some of them have a green circle with a white center. Some of them are green with a white check mark. And this one here is red. What that means is that first auto email, when it goes out, it has a link in it. Remember, they don't actually get the properties. They get a link to the portal, right? So until they click on the link in the first email, the auto email is actually not turned on yet. They have to click on that link in the first email to basically turn it on. They won't get any new notices of any new properties until they click on that link. So one of the things you want to go to after you've set up your auto emails is you want to go here and see if they've started looking at properties. When Terry clicks on this, it'll turn into a green circle with a white check mark, meaning he's started to use some of the information I sent him. You know what? If a day goes by and that doesn't change, I'm calling Terry and saying, did you get the email? I'm going in here and checking and making sure I typed his email address correctly. I'm making sure it didn't go to his junk email folder or his spam filter to make sure that he got it and make sure he knows how to use it. And that's important because if he's not, you're wasting your time waiting for him to do something and you might not even know it. The red one is one that has been turned off. They can be turned off automatically by the system, They can be turned off by the customer, and usually when that happens, it's accidental. They clicked on something in the email at the bottom where they could unsubscribe and they didn't mean to, and you can go back here and turn them back on. Or they ran out of time. There are two ways they can run out of time. Number one, if Terry doesn't click on this for 80 days, and why this is two different sets of days, I have no idea. If he doesn't click on it for 80 days, the system will assume he wasn't serious and it'll just turn it off automatically. Number two, if no properties match one of these searches for 90 days, it will also automatically turn off, which is another reason why you want to monitor it, and it's easy to turn it back on again. Now, over here I have the contact name. Notice the other reason why I want you to change the subject line is if you don't, these will all be the same. This next home is on this list. And so this helps me identify which search is which and what it does. Another good reason for doing a custom subject line in each one of your auto emails. And this is who it's for, and this is the schedule for them, and this is the last time the portal was visited. So you have some good information right here. In addition, in front of each one, you have a little drop down. If I click on it, here are the things you can do. I can go back to settings. This is where I can change the email, change the subject line, check their email address, change the settings which they get emails from. All the things that we set up when we created this, I can do there, including enable and disable. So if I go to settings, I can go down here, and right here is where I can turn it back on if it's off, or turn it off if they want to not use it for a little while. So that's the first setting. In addition, I can go back to the criteria and edit it. They just won the lottery. They can raise their price range. How exciting would that be? And I can go in here and change their criteria. I can look at the results like it's in a search. I can open it in the portal. This is so important. You need to go here regularly and look at the portal and see what they've been doing with this information. And resend welcome. If they never clicked on that first link, and they lost it or didn't get it, you can click on that and resend it up to 2 times so that they can go in and start over. And of course, if they wind up buying from someone else, you can delete the heck out of them here. It only gives you about 3 seconds of satisfaction, but it's better than nothing, you know what I'm saying? So this is where you go to manage your customers and your clients. Any questions about that? If not, let's take a look at a portal here. Now, there's more than one way to get to a portal. I can go to my customer or my client on this list. I can click on the downward pointing arrow and I can go to open in portal right here. For some of them, they're already on the home screen. If I go back to the home screen and I go to recent portal visitors, this gives me a list of the people who have most recently interacted with their portal, or that I've interacted with their portal. So these are probably the people that I am working with most likely. So if I click on Justin Bieber here, I can see he was last in here yesterday, and I can click on this and it'll take me into his stuff, and I can look at some of the things he's been doing, and I can click on open portal. And here's his portal. Now, we don't have time to go over how to customize this today. I will tell you that's also done, in my matrix under my information. There's a place to customize the portal, to make it personal, to add a header and a picture and such. If you need help with that, give me a call and I'll try to talk you through it. But that's how I made that look like that. And if I go to find a home here. You can see the properties on the left and it maps them over here. And I don't want to do a survey, so we'll close that. And up here in the right, I have different views. You want to get familiar with these views because you will get a call from your customer who says, I used to have this in a single line and I liked it that way so I could see what the properties were and what I was doing with them. And how do I get it back there? And you need to be able to tell them what each one of these settings do. You also have some sort options in here. Under My Searches, your customer can go in and create some of their own searches here. Now, this at first might seem like a bad idea, but they're already doing it out on the internet. My suggestion is you show them this, teach them how to do this, and say, now you don't have to go to Zillow or Realtor.com or anybody's website anymore. You can just do it here, and I can see what you're finding when you do it, because you know the internet is not a safe place, and I'm just trying to keep you safe out there, right? But this is a good thing, because when you look at this list, and I'll go back to the one-line list. You can see all of the properties, including any that they came through that were not from your search. Now, I don't have any on here, so I'm going to explain that to you because I think it's kind of important. All of these listings have a date received. That means they came from my search, and the system automatically sent them that property. I don't have any on here today. I usually before the class go in and make believe I'm Justin and do a few things. The ones that would be from Justin's own search would not have a date to them. Well, why is that important? You want to look at those, find out what he was looking at, figure out why it didn't come up on your search. If there are 3 here with dates and 12 that do not have dates, it means his search has been more interesting to him than yours. You want to know why. You want to know why he's looking for these properties when he told you he was looking for something else. Doesn't that make sense? You want to watch for those and see how much of a difference that they may make. The other thing you use the screen for, notice this is a live list. Now, he has a lot of properties. I did that on purpose. With some of your customers, you might only have a few. So some of these are new listings. Here's a price decrease. I can call Justin and say, did you notice that one property lowered their price? Does it make it any more interesting for you? My favorites are the ones that say things like sold and expired. I love to go here and find out that there were only 15 properties and only 5 of them are still active. The rest are expired or sold or pending. So I can call Justin and say, listen, Justin, we only had about 12 properties to begin with. You've only got 3 or 4 of them left. Do you want to wait too much longer to pick one before you lose these as well? So you see how you use this stuff as follow-up. You don't just let it lay there. You contact your customer and talk about what's happening on these properties. And the other thing I want you to notice, and then we'll do the very last thing, is your customer can go here and mark some as favorites and mark some as possibles and reject some, and I'm just doing that arbitrarily. And then you can see what the customer has been doing with some of those things. So, any questions about how you can use this list to actually interact with your customer? And isn't that doing a little bit more with it than just setting it up and not paying a lot of attention any longer?
Right.
All righty. The last thing I want to do then is I want to talk about reverse prospecting. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to close this out.
Actually, John, this is Neely. I do have one quick question.
Sure, good. I
On
love
the-
questions.
On the portal, when I look about being able to customize it, are you able to add the video?
No, you can't do that. You've got the video tours that the agent has on here, the virtual tours and things like that. All you can do is put a picture and create a header and change some of the colors and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Unless they've changed it. I haven't looked at the setting in a long time, but I don't think they have. I haven't seen that. All righty, any other questions? All righty then, we're going to go back here and talk about one more thing that you can do. Unfortunately, I can't actually show it to you because I don't list and sell properties, so I don't have any listings. But you remember that we talked about what reverse prospecting is. You check the box and it lets the agents whose listings appeared on this search know that you have a prospect in the system that matches their listing. And if I go back here to my matrix and auto email, let me see if I can remember where this is. If I click here, I can see all of his information. Boy, I'm sorry. I have forgotten where the number is. Oh, reference number. There's normally a reference number here that tells me who this customer is. And they get to see that reference number. And so they can tell you what the number is, and you can find out which customer it is. But you won't get a lot of those calls. Where you're actually going to use it, and I'm going to go back here to my home screen. And since I don't have any listings, I am going to become somebody. I am going to become Mike Chenault here, which means I suddenly want to go shark fishing. Can't help it. And I'll scroll down to Mike's active listings. And here's Mike's active listings. And let's just see what he has here. Let's take a look at this Rural Point listing. So I'll check it off. Notice when you click on one of your listings, you would do this with your listings. Down at the bottom, you have reverse prospecting. This is where you go to see what the reverse prospecting is on your listing. And oddly enough, this is not going to show me what I want. Let's go back and get a different one. Let's try Studley instead. And you can only look at one listing at a time. There we go. Notice these are all the agents who have a prospect in the system that matches this listing. If it were mine, I'd want to contact them. There are a few ways to do it. Number one, Fred here, his customer made it a favorite. So I'm calling everyone who made it a favorite. These two guys, Sandra and Lindsay, they have a customer who made it a possibility. I'm calling Fred, here's his number, and saying, you have a customer that matched my listing. It's reference number 95236. Have you shown it to them? Can I help you show it to them? Why did they like it so much? When are you bringing me an offer? After all, they made it a favorite, didn't they? The other two I'm calling and saying they said it has possibilities. What do they need us to do to it to help them move it from possibilities to a favorite? Oh, they hated the color of the bright orange half bath. You know what? I'll go over there this afternoon and repaint it for you. You know what I'm saying? So those guys are getting a call. The others you can email. And you have their email addresses right here. I think I know who this guy is right here. I don't know. Maybe I do. But the point is, how many of you want to do this one email at a time, sending each one of these guys an email? Now, MLS does not let you send more than one email at a time directly out of their system, or to more than one person at a time. They never have. Lots of MLSs do. Ours doesn't. So I'm going to show you a way to get around that.
John,
Yes.
real quick, remind me how you got there. I was still on the other thing that you had just shown us when you went to the screen and missed how you got there. Do you
You
mind doing
go, in your case, you would go to My Listings and you would
Okay.
see all of your listings. You checked off the one you want and click on reverse prospecting at the bottom.
that? Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Now you usually have to have Excel open. Let me see if I can do that real quick. Yeah, I can. So I'm going to open up an Excel spreadsheet because doesn't this look like Excel? And you can't see the Excel spreadsheet opening up right now. That's okay. I'm just going to open up a blank workbook here. And I'll move it out of the way for me for now. And so I'm going to start up here right in front of Fred. And I'm going to hold my left mouse button down and drag it down. And you can drag it all the way down to the bottom, however many you want. I'll just grab some of them here. So now they're all highlighted, aren't they? And so now I am going to right click while hovering over one of them. Don't click on them, just right click. And I'm going to click on copy. So now let me switch to a different screen here for you. And let's see. There's my Excel screen. All right, can you all see my Excel screen now? And I'm going to go up here to this upper left-hand first cell. I'm going to right-click here, and I'm going to click on paste. And there they all are. If I click here and double-click here, you can see them all. And look what I now have. I have all those email addresses in one column, don't I? So now I can go down here, highlight those email addresses, copy them, open up a new email in however I do my email and write this down, paste them into BCC, not into CC, in BCC, so they won't all see each other's email addresses. And I can send them an email, all of them at the same time that says something. I see you have a prospect that matches my listing. Are you still working with them? Here's some information on the property. Attach your flyer or your e-card to it. Let me know if I can help you put a deal together between your customer and my client. I'd love to work with you. That's how you follow up on reverse prospecting. And this takes no more than 10 minutes to maybe send out 30, 40, 50 emails to all your people. That's how you use reverse prospecting. You remember, favorites and possibilities get phone calls. They always get phone calls. These you copy and paste and email. Yes, Brenda?
My Excel sheet never did populate.
Well, I'd have to see your computer to help you with that.
Okay, it's okay.
It
Okay.
depends on how it's set
Yeah,
up.
John, it didn't come over. We saw you open up Excel, but the
It
video
never populate.
is still
Oh,
showing
okay.
book one.
Yeah, well, that's how Zoom is working then. I'm sorry about that, but take my word for it. It populated on my screen.
Yeah.
We're still learning how to do this. I'll tell you what, let me try one more time.
There it is.
There it is. Okay. So
Yeah.
now you can see it and you can see it's all filled in. Yeah, we're all learning how to Zoom better and better. All righty, so that's everything for today. My bag is empty. Any last quick questions about auto emails? Cool. Then one last admonishment. If you don't do the practice I told you to do this afternoon, by tomorrow you'll start forgetting all this stuff. So this afternoon, do at least 3 or 4 fake ones. You can always go back in and delete them once you've got the process down, and then put dates in your calendar when you're going to do your follow-up and follow those dates.
Okay.
I will tell you 80% of the other people out there are not doing this stuff. Okay, so 1 second. I am going to try to turn off, there it is, stop recording.